A majority of Americans support abortion when it comes to rape, but today's program may change the way they feel. Today we're going to get the point of view of a woman who chose abortion, as well as an expert in the field. And I'm going to talk with a woman who was conceived in an act of rape. Be prepared to see things in a new light. Nicole, you've written a book about your experience with rape, specifically date rape. Can you take me back to that time in your life?
I was a young, naive officer in the United States Army, and I met someone who was older than me, was in another service, but senior in rank to me, and was very taken with him and far too trusting of him than I should have been, and allowed myself to be in vulnerable situations, and he did drug me, and I just didn't anticipate that, and as a result, he was able to take advantage of me.
What went through your mind when you found out you were pregnant as a result of this rape?
I was devastated. I had been in denial. I suspected something must have happened, but I didn't know for sure because I didn't have any concrete memories of the rape itself. But when confronted with the positive pregnancy test, I knew for sure something had happened. And so I was dealing with the loss of something I held precious that I wanted to save for my future husband. I was dealing with a new life that I hadn't planned on. It's a crisis. It was a huge trauma.
So did you go to others for advice as far as what to do, whether to keep the baby, place the baby for adoption, or have an abortion?
I went home to deal with what was going on. I was on emergency leave for a week. My mother was of the opinion that she shouldn't tell me what to do, that it's better for me to make my own decision and just support me in whatever I wanted to do. So my mother took me to see a doctor to confirm the pregnancy. And this person unfortunately also did abortions, so I didn't leave her office feeling any more resolution. So I sought the counsel from my pastor. My pastor told me any decision prayerfully considered is okay in the eyes of the church.
Really?
And then went on to describe two situations in her own family. Her two daughters had both faced unplanned pregnancies. One chose adoption, the other chose abortion, and both were equally good outcomes, she assured me. And at that moment, my heart closed. I felt something inside of me said, this doesn't seem quite right, but I discounted my own doubts because I valued her experience. She must know something I don't. I'm the one that's missing something. And that's the moment that I decided to have an abortion.
Nicole, did you think the abortion would put the rape behind you?
I did. At that time, the prevailing opinion was that abortion was the accepted choice for rape victims, that would help me to get on with my life. But in fact, it wasn't going to help me get on with my life and was going to send me to even deeper levels of despair.
Nicole's experience is not overlooked by researchers at the Elliott Institute. They've studied the impact rape and abortion has on women. One researcher, Amy Sobey, joined me to discuss the findings. You've co-edited studies that compared women who chose to have abortions and those who did not. What did your study find out about those women?
What we found out was that a lot of them were saying, abortion wasn't a good solution. It compounded their trauma, it made it harder for them to heal, and that a lot of them didn't feel like they had another choice. That they were pressured, or people said, "Oh, you can't have this baby." They didn't necessarily get any support or alternatives.
I had a lot of irrational fears that were motivating me to have an abortion. One was a fear for my safety. So I really believed I had to do this. So going to the abortion, it felt like being the lamb led to the slaughter. It was not a sense of peace or of certainty that what I was doing was right, but just that I had to do it anyway.
So did you feel it was your only choice?
I did.
Do you think that the women were pressured into having the abortion after the rape?
I think definitely. I think in our survey, it was like 43%. But a lot of them said, who specifically answered that question, did someone else pressure you? I think like 43% said yes. but a lot of them made indications, even if they didn't actually answer that survey question, saying that they felt a lot of pressure, that people didn't think they should have the baby, that they weren't given alternatives, that they weren't given support, they felt like they had no other choice. And I think that kind of correlates with what we've also seen, like surveys of women who weren't raped but have abortions, who like 64% in one survey said that they felt pressured by other people. So I think that kind of goes together, whether they've been raped or not, that there is pressure definitely to have an abortion, I would imagine, particularly with a rape.
When we return, Rebecca Kiessling joins me to talk about what it's like to learn she was conceived during rape and nearly aborted.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
This week I'm talking with Nicole Cooley, author of Into the Light, an autobiography about her decision to abort her child conceived during a date rape, and Rebecca Kiessling, who was conceived in the act of rape. Both women take a stand for the life of the baby and reject abortion, even in the case of rape. Rebecca, in your own words, you say you're a child of rape. How did you know you were conceived in an act of rape?
Well, I didn't know growing up, and then at 18 I petitioned the court for what's called my non-identifying information, and it had everything you can imagine about my birth mother except for her name. Her eye color, hair color, height, weight, age, the age of my half-brother and half-sister, her ethnicity, religious background, occupation, educational level, detailed medical history, and all it had for my father was that he was Caucasian and of large build, and I thought that sounds like a police description. So I called up my caseworker and I asked her, was my mom raped? And she said, yeah, I didn't want to tell you.
Now, did your mother try to have an abortion?
Yes, actually the rape counselor that the police had referred to recommended an abortion and set up 2 abortions for her.
And obviously she didn't have that, but explain the situations.
Well, for the first, she said that it was the typical back alley conditions that you hear about as to why she should have been able to safely and legally abort me. She said there was blood and dirt on the floor and on the table. And the back alley conditions and the fact that it was illegal caused her to back out. And then she got hooked up with a more expensive abortionist, and she was to meet someone at night by the Detroit Institute of Arts. Someone would approach her, say her name, blindfold her, put her in the back seat of a car, then take her and abort me, then blindfold her again and drop her back off. And actually the morning that she was to have me aborted, she spoke with this abortion doctor on the phone, and she expressed concern for her own safety, as you can imagine. And he called her names, told her she was stupid, and then she said, okay, we're done, And then he proceeded to swear at her, and she hung up the phone. And then he actually called her back the next day to try to talk her into it once again.
He really wanted the business, eh?
I can't even tell you what it feels like to know that somebody would want to take my life so badly that they would call back the next day.
Well, do you think she would have had an abortion had it been legal?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when we met, a few weeks after meeting her in person, I finally got up the courage
to ask her about abortion. For my own well-being at the time, I felt like that was something that I really needed to hear. I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to know that I was wanted. I didn't want to feel like I was a target for abortion. I didn't like being in that classification anyway, conceived in rape. So I kind of wanted to distance myself from the whole abortion debate. And I wanted to hear that I was wanted and safe, but that's not what she told me. She said that if it had been legal, she would have aborted me.
Well, what kind of impact did that have on you emotionally to hear that?
It was devastating. It was devastating. I felt totally forsaken. And then to hear that later that she actually did go to two back alley abortionists.
Well, when people tell you they're, quote, pro-choice, what kind of reaction do you have?
I do tell people, well, what that really means is that you could sit here and look me in the eye and say to me, I think your mother should have been able to abort you. And that's a pretty powerful statement. And I would never say to someone, if I had my way, you'd be dead right now. And that is the reality with which I live. And I explain that to people. And there are people who will immediately tell me, oh my goodness, I don't think that.
Do you ever think that if you had chosen to have your baby and parent that child, do you think that he or she would have been a constant reminder of that dreadful night when you were raped?
I don't think so. From what I've read of other women who have been raped and have kept their babies, which 2/3 of the women that have been raped that have the baby do choose to self-parent, that the pregnancy becomes a part of the healing process. It's something you and the baby go through together. And I don't think the father has any part of it. It's my baby. And the baby is the gift.
Coming up,
I've learned that my value and identity are not established as being a product of rape.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real life issues head on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
according to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1 in 6 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. Today, we're asking the question, what happens when a woman becomes pregnant after rape? And will an abortion bring peace to this traumatic event? Do you think there's a link between, or similarities between, the emotions women feel who are post-abortive and who are rape victims?
A lot of people have described very similar things. The feeling of being helpless, the feeling of not having a choice, the feeling of being vulnerable and violated. You hear that a lot with women after abortions, even ones who haven't been raped. And in fact, a lot of women who've had abortions, or a number of women, have described it as being like a rape. The abortion procedure itself, because someone else is violating you, someone else is in control. They're taking something from you. So I think there are a lot of similar aspects.
In the book Victims and Victors, rape victims speak about their experience with abortion, often citing the emotional pain of the rape has been healed, but years later, there's no healing from the abortion.
When you've had an abortion or been through a rape, you often experience post-traumatic stress, where events in the present will trigger responses from things that happened in the past, and that was very common in my marriage. Things would happen that would remind me both of the rape and the rapist, or my abortion. My husband, unfortunately, with the births of several of my children, I would go right back to post-traumatic stress, and he got to play the role of the rapist, and I would feel afraid of him. And I knew this was my husband who loved me, but subconsciously, emotionally, I couldn't separate the past from the present. And that's where counseling was very helpful, and a lot of prayer as well to sever those ties.
What would you say the most valuable lesson is that you've learned in life after finding out how you were conceived?
I've learned that my value and identity are not established as being a product of rape. But I know that I'm a child of God, and that the rapist is not my creator, as some people would have me believe. I know that I was created for a purpose. When I was younger, I remember learning how I was conceived and feeling so ugly that I was conceived out of something so awful, out of an act of hatred. And I had wanted to be conceived out of love like other people. But today I know that I was conceived out of love. I was conceived out of God's love, which is so much greater. I mean, the word conceived means to be thought of. And I know that God thought of me and He created me in that situation for a purpose.
So in your opinion, the exception for rape should not be existent in laws ending abortion?
No. Well, people will say to me, well, don't you think that's a bit extreme to actually tell a woman who's been raped that she would be forced to carry that baby? Don't you think that's a bit extreme? And I look at them and I say, well, I actually think it's a bit extreme to tell another human being that you're trash, that you were disposable, that your life was not worthy of protection. Don't you think that's a bit extreme? People just don't think in those terms. I mean, my birth mother's okay. Life went on for her. I would have been killed through a brutal abortion.
It is reported that 1% of rapes result in pregnancies. And like Rebecca's mother, who eventually chose life for her baby, half of rape victims do the same. When we return, you'll have a chance to enter to receive a free copy of Nicole's book, Into the Light.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
Abortion is a legal choice. Often in the case of rape, abortion is viewed as the only option for a woman to find healing and acceptance. So it may seem on the surface like the right choice. However, more women are speaking about their traumatic experience with rape resulting in a pregnancy and their choice to refuse an abortion. Well, do you think abortion can be an emotional fix for women who are assaulted by rape?
I think there's that perception. I think a lot of people think that, if she has an abortion, her life will go back to the way it was. That she can get over it and put it behind her. But I don't think that's true at all. Most of the women that we talked with, or most of the women that responded to the survey, felt that it only compounded the trauma that they'd already experienced. Again, the similarities between the trauma of rape and the trauma of abortion, and there was. And then also the lack of choice, a lot of them feeling like they had no other choice but to abort. And then I think a lot of them felt like abortion was something that enabled other people to ignore their situation, then you wouldn't have to deal with the rape, and just put it behind you, get on with your life kind of thing. So they felt silenced, they felt dismissed. And again, that's one thing too, is that a lot of times, when people talk about children conceived in rape, they talk about the rapist baby, but the woman, it's her baby too. And I think, we don't refer to that. We talk about having a baby from rape or having the rapist baby, but not her baby.
Nicole, have you ever been able to assist other women who have had similar experiences as a result of your experience?
Many times. In standing in front of an abortion clinic, There was one time where a boyfriend came out and I told him, if you really love her, he won't let her do this. And he went back in and got her. And I was able to follow them to the car and just encourage them that the pregnancy center across the street would help them, and just remember seeing him turn around and the tears in his eyes. And the joy that his girlfriend will not undergo the pain and suffering that I have.
Do you ever find that you're in a position where you're trying to prove yourself and justify your existence to others?
Yeah. Oh, I really felt a lot like that when I was younger. I've always been a person who's been outspoken. I wanted to be an attorney since I was 10 or 11 years old. My father identified that in me. He'd see me, get excited about something and really be able to think through issues, and he'd say, oh, you're good. You should be a lawyer.
It's a good qualification for a lawyer.
Yeah. So I've always been one who's not just going to take it and cower away and, oh, poor me. But so I would fight for my life. Felt like I was defending my own life. But at the same time, I still didn't really know my own value. So the fact that I know my value in Christ gives me a much better foundation for now being able to confidently deal with people without being emotionally shaken to the core because these people won't recognize my value. It doesn't affect my value. My values have to be based upon them affirming me.
Kind of puts things in perspective.
Because I kind of felt that when I was younger. I needed the affirmation, and now I can handle